Hello everybody, it's Murray here and welcome back to my channel M Stuart Paint. On today's acrylic painting tutorial we're going to paint this gorgeous sunset ocean beach. I'm going to teach you how to blend and how to make realistic colours, how to use these colours to create highlights and shadows to make your work look really realistic, how to paint sunset clouds in acrylic paints, how to paint ocean waves very easily and what brushes to use so you can paint this gorgeous sunset beach landscape acrylic painting. So let's get into it. Welcome everybody, here are the colours that I use for the tutorial. They are titanium white, cad yellow deep hue, cad orange, cad red, crimson, rose pink, cerulean blue, cobalt blue, ultramarine blue, iris purple, warm grey, Payne's grey and ivory black. Now I've got an A4 canvas which is the size of printer paper and I've stained it burnt sienna. I've used a pencil just to create an outline of a sunset and I've used chalk for the sun. I'm going to have half the canvas as a sunset and half the canvas as an ocean beach. We're going to have some clouds coming out diagonally. We're going to have these big waves coming towards the shore and the beach. And then we're going to have some shimmering sand and we're going to have some beach just here in the bottom right. So if you'd like to copy down the outline, we'll get started. So just like always, we always start with the sky at the back and we're just going to use titanium white. I've got all the warm colours one side and all the cool colours the other side, and I've got a couple of in-between colours which I'll teach you how to mix and I'll show you later. But the first thing we're going to do, we're just going to use some white and put in a circle, and that's going to be our focus point. That's going to be our sun, and we're going to use cad yellow just around the sun, so just bright cad yellow. So all I'm doing is I'm just creating a little circle to create a glow effect. Now this colour here is called cad yellow deep hue. You don't have to buy it, I'm just lazy. You just mix yellow and a tiny bit of orange and you should get a golden yellow like this. So all you have to do is add yellow to a little bit of orange, but if you're very lazy like me and you can't be bothered to mix, you can just buy it. It's called cad yellow deep hue. And all we're going to do, we're going to just extend that glow around the sun and just create a beautiful setting sun. So look, you can get lots of orange. Orange is very overpowering. So if you put a little bit in, it's going to really take a lot out. So what we're going to do is we're just going to add a tiny bit of warm grey and a tiny bit of this cad yellow deep hue. And it should turn it a dark pumpkin colour, sort of an autumn colour. Now warm grey, again you don't have to buy it, you can make with black, lots and lots of white and some orange. So you don't necessarily have to buy these paints if you haven't got them at home, because I appreciate not everyone can afford paints. So what we're doing, look, we've got a big jump here. So let's block in this side and we should have a big jump there. Now in nature, you don't really see things jump from one colour to another. It looks kind of weird here on our painting. So we want to blend it, and we do so by making a colour in between this dark colour and the yellow of the glow around the sun. So if we get some orange, so let's just get some warm orange, and we get some of that cad yellow, and we just make a softer version. It's got no warm grey. See, it's a little bit lighter, a little bit more happy. And if we make our X shapes with our brush, we can blend this warmer tone into the dark tone and just lighten it up. And then we can go around our glow and it should look like a softer, warmer glow around the sun. And we'll just blend it into that darker shade. So there we go. And you can neaten up. Now we've got the colours blocked in, you can neaten up your glow. So look, if I get some of that golden yellow we just mixed, that cad yellow deep hue, I can go back around it, look. So let's just get some on the brush. And we can blend it gently, look, into the next colours. So you don't notice the change in colour. And we can do the same with our cad yellow. And our cad orange, look, we can just blend it really, really gently from one colour to another. And let's get our cad yellow and extend our glow just so this area looks less scruffy. And our cad yellow deep hue. So all we're doing, look, we're trying to make all the transitions look seamless by just taking our time, using a really soft brush and just blending really gently. You can even use your fingers if you find that easier. So look, you can just spread it with your fingers. You just want a really nice soft blend. So we can't go from orange to blue because we'll get a green sky. So look, jump from the warm colours to the dark blues would be really, really weird, and we get a green sky. So see this colour called yellow ochre I've got a big pile of in the middle? Well, I'm going to show you how to make that. You can just get purple and yellow and a tiny bit of orange. So yellow, a tiny bit of orange and purple, and you should get a colour called yellow ochre. See, like this? So you don't necessarily have to buy it, but that's why I left it off the list. So just get purple, some yellow and a little bit of orange, and you should get that shade. Now you can change the shade. Look, you can add more purple to turn it more cooler. You can even add pink, look, to make it more beige. So I'm going to add a little bit of pink to my colour. So purple, yellow, a little bit of pink. I'm going to add some white. And it's a bit too warm. So I'm going to add a little bit of cerulean blue to cool it back down and make it a bit more grey. Now, as you can see, look, there's a big jump again from the warm orange that we've mixed and that's cool sort of grey. So what we're going to do is we're going to mix the two together and get an in-between colour. Look at that. So it's not too warm and it's not too cool. It's just right. There you go. So we've made this in-between colour. And what we're going to do, we're going to create a sort of bridge between the hot, really, really bright, warm orange around the sun. So think of the sun as a really big flame. It's going to have lots of heat. And this colour that we're mixing in between, this beige sort of colour, kind of protects us from turning our sky green. So we're going to use this colour and we're just going to go across the painting. Don't worry about blending just yet. We'll fix all that again because we don't want a big jump in colour. We're just going to go straight across. So look, I've got it a line across my painting. Let's go to about here. We just kind of want it even. So try to get roughly even. So that's kind of in line, isn't it? And then we can work on the blending. So again, look, just like the orange and the yellow we just did previously, we could go back to our warmer colours. So we can go back to that orange and we can create our X shapes and we can start blending it. So the trick is always the same. When you are doing a section of the painting and you're moving from one section of the sky or the waves to another, you want to try to work on your transitions. So think of nature as absolutely perfect. You don't see the change in transitions. So let's get a bit more orange. We want to do the same as artists. Look, we can just smooth everything up, make it look really realistic. So I'm just going to add a little bit more orange to make that glow look a bit more powerful. So let's just get a little bit more orange. And let's just extend that glow. So we want everything to look really natural, really smooth. Now this does take time. Look, you can add some cad yellow deep hue and you can add some orange together. And I know in today's world where everything is instant and everyone fast forwards everything, but this is the trick. The underpainting, before we put the clouds and all the detail over the top, this is the thing that's the hardest bit. So by learning how to blend and taking your time, don't rush, don't try to keep up with everyone, go at your own speed. You can create these really, really realistic underpaintings. And then when you start putting the clouds and all the detail on top, that's the thing that will trick the eye and make your work look really super realistic. So look, now we've got this blended area. It's kind of mucked up my glow. So look, you can just go back, look, and you can just fix things. So acrylics are fantastic for beginners because they're extremely cheap, but also they're really forgiving. Look, if there's an area that's gone wrong, we can just paint over it. They dry so quick. And if they're not dry, you can just dry it with a hairdryer and you can just go over the top. And remember, because they're water-based, you can always go over the top like I'm doing now and make areas look more vibrant, more brighter. By just taking your time and giving them a second coat of paint, look, you can just make things look prettier, more refined. So you can always pause this video. Don't feel you have to go at the same speed. Or you can always come back to areas and come back to your painting, rewatch it. So now that's lovely and blended, we're just going to get some cad red, and we're going to mix it into some orange to make it nice and warm. And then we're going to get a tiny dot of our warm grey, and we're just going to put that in and turn it to a more maroon burgundy sort of colour. Now at the bottom of the horizon, sometimes you get nice wispy clouds just sat on the horizon, so we're just going to do that. We're just going to darken this area up. I've got a really soft round-headed brush that I'm just using to blend, so I'm just going to do the same on the opposite side. And I'm just trying to create sort of low forming clouds just on the horizon to make it look far back into the distance. If it's a bit too harsh, look, you can always just add a little bit of water and just blend it really gently. So there we go. I'm just going to smooth this area. My one's gone a bit funny. I have two ravens sitting on my roof having a chat next to me, so if you can hear some quacking crows, you're not going mad. It's some birds next to my house while I'm recording sound. So now we're going to jump a little bit darker and we're going to go into some blue. So we're going to add some cerulean blue into our sky colour that we mixed up earlier with that yellow ochre sort of colour we made. And we're going a little bit more purple to turn it more cool, and some warm grey. Loving the warm grey. It's my new favourite colour. I'm starting to add it to everything. So we're going to put that down, and I think that looks a little bit too green, doesn't it? It looks a bit too turquoise. So this is what I was saying. If you go from yellows to blues, it's going to look a bit weird. So let's add some cobalt blue. Cobalt blue is a lot cooler. And let's test that out. So again, I think that's still a bit too dark and a bit too greenish. It's got like a kind of greeny tint because it's still got some of that yellow. So it's kind of hard. This is what I keep saying to you. It's kind of hard to gauge. So sometimes you've got to mix some colours. So let's add some more white to cool it down and grey it a bit more. A little bit of cerulean blue. And let's test that out. That looks much better. So white sucks a little bit of the vibrancy out of your colour. So by adding a little bit of white and adding things like purple and cobalt blue is the opposite of yellows and oranges. It will make things look a lot cooler. They're much cooler colours. So by using that in our mix, it's going to cool this area a lot more. Make it look like it's getting less sunlight. So there we go, let's block in. And again, we're just creating a line across our canvas. So we're just doing sections of the canvas. So let's go up to about here. So let's just block in this side. Don't worry if you go over your outlines for your clouds, we can change them anyway and paint over them. It's no bother. Just a rough outline so we know where things will roughly be. So look, we've got kind of a straight line. It's a bit wonky at the top, but don't worry. So we've got this jump again from one colour to the next, and we can't have that, can we? So what we're going to do, we're going to blend it. So let's just mix these two colours together. Try not to turn it green. Hopefully by coming down, we can just blend it. There we go. That's one side done. Let's just add a tiny bit more of the beigey sort of colour to my mix. Sorry, it's off screen. So I'm just adding a little bit more of the beige colour. So all I'm doing each time, I'm going kind of back to the previous colour that we used, and then going down and creating X shapes and just trying to gently blend it. And I'm going to add a little bit more warmth. I'm going to add a little bit more red to the mix, and a tiny bit of that warm grey, and a bit of orange. There we go. Just want it all to blend. And if I just get a little bit more orange here and just soften everything up. So by getting some orange, we can just, look, as I say, excuse the focus. Just use my finger. Just want it all to blend. So let's do the dark bit at the top now. So clean my brush. And let's get some cobalt blue. And warm grey again. To make it nice and grey and dark. So cobalt blue and warm grey. And let's create a really dark corners. So what we're trying to do, we're trying to create a dark outline for our painting. So by creating a really dark, harsh colour, we're going to make this sunset look really moody and dark. But also by framing the painting, by making our corners and our edges nice and dark, it gets you to focus towards the middle. So by having this darkened outline in the top corners, we can get you to look towards the sunset. So again, we're just going to create a line and block this area in. So just add a little bit more water to my brush to spread the paint. And we're just going to block this chunk in. And then we're going to go back to our previous colour that we had just before this, which was cerulean blue, cobalt blue, and some white. So let's just add some white to our mix and add some cerulean blue and a little bit of cobalt blue just to make it not as harsh. So we're going back to the previous colour. Excuse the focus. Loves my 22-inch biceps. Only joking. So there we go. And all I'm doing, look, I'm just creating my X shapes and I'm just blending that colour into the darkened edges. I'm making sure I keep the dark edges. Look, I've kept a little bit of that really dark bluey grey at the top. And I'm just blending it in. So look, you can see one corner is blended and the left corner isn't. So let's just blend it. But I'm keeping that tiny bit of the edge at the top. And we should have a seamlessly blended sky. Look at that. Dun, 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 dun. Wahey. So I know it takes a while. I know it's very tedious and I know it's hard. But this is the thing that creates the realism. So we're going to do the same on the ocean. We're going to block everything in. And we're going to try to make our ocean look nice and blocked in to match our sunset. So we want to kind of mirror the light coming down from the sun. So we need warm colours to do that. So think of the shape of a key. So you have the round bit at the top and then you have the sort of thin bit coming down. So think of the shape of a key. Sort of the teeth of it come down. So we're kind of doing that on the ocean. We're kind of creating this torch-like quality from the sun that's shimmering down onto the ocean. So we're just using some cad orange. And then in the middle, we're just trying to match the sunlight. So we're going to use some of that cad yellow deep hue. And then let's get some red and add it to our orange and some warm grey again. Oops, way too much warm grey. Whoops, my mistake. So let's just add some red and orange to a little bit. You only need a little bit of warm grey. So let's just add a little bit of white to turn it more burgundy. Now either side of the setting sun is going to be cooler. So imagine if you had a torch on the ground is going to have a big ray of light to see where you're going, but either side is going to get darker. So by using this burgundy either side of our orange and yellow, we can insinuate that the light is sort of getting less harsh and getting cooler the further away it gets from the sun. So we're just trying to create sort of a mirror to the left and to the right. So really, really easy. And don't worry if you go over your outline or you go over the horizon. We can neaten everything up with painting tape later on. We just want to make everything blocked in so we know where everything is going to be. So I've got a pretty steady hand. I'm going to go right up. So we've got these warm colours. So either side to the right and the left and onto the beach is going to be darker. So if we get some cobalt blue again, and we get some purple and cerulean blue, and a little bit of white, we can make a colour. Let's put some warm grey in. We can make a colour very similar to the top of our painting that we used for the edges. We can create this sort of dark grey blue, and we can just block in our ocean. So what it should look like is underneath the sun is extremely warm, and to the left of the right it's much more in the shade and cool, getting less sunlight. So as I keep saying to you, it's the same trick over and over again. But what we're going to do, we're going to leave this bottom bit not blended. We'll blend it later when we do all the waves. We just want to block her in. So as I say, don't worry if it looks scruffy. It's gonna look scruffy. Paintings always come together right at the last minute. So don't beat yourself up if your painting looks scruffy. Look at mine. Doesn't look great at the moment. We're 20 odd minutes in. That's the way it goes. So don't panic. So I'm just going to go right up to that outline. Ooh, I've got a steady hand. Look at this. That's pretty straight. I'm quite impressed with myself. Normally I'm all over the shop and wonky. So there we go, all blocked in. Now, if the ocean's all blocked in, we're going to have this sand. Now, this sand is really far away from the sun, so it's almost going to be silhouetted. So let's get some crimson, which is a burgundy colour, and add a little bit of orange and some warm grey. So basically we're adding hot colours to warm grey to make it look like an area that's getting a little bit of sunlight. So it's not quite black, it's getting a little bit of sunlight. And we can just block in this sand. And what that does is it gives a little divide. Again, it frames your painting at the bottom. And we need a dark left corner because we want to sign it. So we need a dark colour in our left corner to sign it. But it just gives a big divide between, look, the ocean and the sand. So there we go. So we've got a blocked in painting. As I say, don't worry about the bottom, the ocean not being blended. That is what we're going for at the moment. We just want to work on this glow effect, and we just want everything to be where we want it to be. And then we're going to start refining it. So let's start with the sky and refine the background and all the clouds, and then we'll start working on the ocean. So the first thing I'm going to do, now we've got all these beautiful colours that are all blended, is just I'm going to swap over to my nice lovely brushes, and I'm just going to use a fine liner. I'm going to use some white around for the sun. I'm just going to create a white circle for the sun, and I'm just going to get some cad yellow deep hue, and I'm just going to create some clouds, go in between the yellow. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of orange. I will show you my palette in a minute. But all I've got is cad yellow deep hue and a tiny bit of orange. And I'm just putting it on my little fine liner brush. My cool little Zen Art brushes. And then I'm just going to create a cloud that's, look, it's just a slightly darker shade of orangey yellow than the bright yellow behind it. That's all I'm doing. So if you think these clouds are going to be extremely warm because they're coming across the sun, And then by adding a little bit more orange, look, just around this area. Still got plenty of that cad yellow deep hue. It's just slightly brighter, sorry, it's slightly darker than the bright yellow behind it. So it just stands out. But it's still extremely warm. And those clouds that are on the horizon, you can just see nice and wispy, just taking effect. And let's just add a little bit more orange. So if I move my palette finally, there we go. So I'm just add a little bit more orange. So look, if it's yellow and orange around the sun, by adding, look, a little bit more orange as you go to the right or go to the left, and just blending it, all it does is it makes it look like it's getting darker, just like what we were talking about the ocean. So the further away from the sun, the more harsh and the more darker in colour. Because it is still quite close, it's still got a bright warm colour in the orange. So let's get some of this burgundy colour we mixed up, which was crimson and warm grey. And let's start getting darker. Let's get some harsh shadows. So we were going from really, really warm and really, really bright to still quite warm because we've got crimson and grey, but a lot more harsh and a lot more darker. Because I want this sunset to be really moody. Look really realistic. So I'm using a little angler brush. It's got like a nib for a kind of like a pen. So it's really, really easy to just block in areas. The end is kind of like a Sharpie. So it's really, really easy to just fill in areas and draw with your paint. So look, again, there's a big jump between the orange and this crimson and warm grey. So all I'm going to do, I'm going to block it in first, and then I'm going to blend it. So as I was saying to you, look at the ocean below it. Look how scruffy it looks. It looks like that because we haven't blended it. So a lot of painting is just knowing where you are in it and being okay with that. Don't rush. Know you have to do each stage step by step. So look, all I'm doing, I've got a clean brush. Look, I'm just blending the two colours together. Just working on those transitions. There we go. That's starting to look more realistic, isn't it? So we've got this glow and we've got this central focus point so someone can look towards that. So let's get some warm grey and make our crimson even darker. So crimson and a little bit of warm grey. And a little bit of ultramarine blue to turn it more grey. So ultramarine blue is even harsher than cobalt blue. So let's try that out. Ooh, this looks even darker. Look at this. So because it's got a little bit of the ultramarine blue in it, it turns it more purpley. Because the crimson and the ultramarine blue mix with the grey. And now we can start building up and learning how to paint sunset clouds. So again, look, I'm just blending it into that previous colour. And at the horizon, you tend to get really thin, wispy clouds that go across sort of horizontally. They're quite flat. So they just go along the horizon, just sort of breaking away. And then what they tend to do, clouds, is as they go up, they tend to go kind of diagonally. And by making them diagonal, you can make your painting look more realistic because it looks like they're going round. So all I'm doing, look, I'm creating little breakaway shapes. So I'm using a really thin brush and I'm just doing little splats that look like they're breaking off into the distance. But they're all kind of going at a diagonal angle. You see that? towards the corners of the painting. So let's block in this bad boy, this big one. Excuse the light, I think a cloud has just gone past my window. Made it really dark. But can you start to see now how it's tricking your eye? The underpainting that we did first. Now we're putting the clouds on top. That's what's creating these realism. Because we're matching the shades, we're matching these dark colours away from the sun and the warm colours nearer the sun. It's all starting to take shape. So look, I do big chunky clouds going up at a diagonal angle. And then with this really thin brush, look, I just have little bits that look like they're breaking away. So let's just get some more paint and just make this a little bit darker. This brush is fantastic. So block it all in. If anyone wants to know any equipment I use, this is an A4 canvas that you can buy anywhere. It's nothing special. It's from Hobbycraft, but you can buy them obviously on Amazon. It's just the size of printer paper. I know a lot of people want to know exactly what I use, but just for these little tutorials, it's nothing expensive. My brushes as well, if you want to know, there's a link in the description below. There's affiliate links, so if you want to buy anything, just be aware that it's an affiliate, and there's information about that in the description below. So let's just make some clouds here at the top. Look at this, it's all starting to come alive. So just all these little breakaway parts. And just here to create more of a glow, I'm just going to go back to my warm red. So I'm just going to get some red or some crimson. So red and crimson to make this lovely sort of cherry red. And I'm just going to add a tiny bit of that warm grey. So I'm just trying to make a reddy grey, like a really dark burgundy. And look, just on this dark cloud, I can just heat this area up by adding this sort of cherry red and just glazing the bottom of it, so it just looks like the bottom is getting some heat from that sun just shining up onto it. So it's just the same principle over and over again. Where's the light going to be hitting? Just think of that. And you can also look, you can just add a little bit here just so the transition's a lot smoother from the hots to the colds. So let's just make this cloud a little bit darker just to frame her. I haven't done a really dark sunset for a while, so this is really nice for me. And then what we're going to do, we're just going to get some bright cad yellow and a fine liner, and we're just going to go and outline some of our clouds just here in the middle. Because we want the viewer to focus straight down the middle, by having things that they can focus on, so having this really refined bright yellow just draws their eyes to look towards the sun. So again, sometimes when you lay the paint, it can look extremely bright. So look, this looks very, very bright. Because acrylics are water-based, it's going to absorb some of the underpainting. So if you have to go over it twice, you have to go over it twice. Don't be alarmed. I'm just adding a little bit of the cad yellow deep hue and orange to the yellow, and a little bit of white to create sort of a peach tone. And then as it just gets a little bit cooler, I'm just going to do the same. I'm just going to outline some of these clouds. It's really, really subtle. Barely notice it unless you're close up. We're just trying to create some definition between the clouds. So let's just have a little bit of a glow just underneath this bad boy. And just here, where these clouds sort of intersect, I'm just going to put some yellow just to create a glow. So you're just basically cutting holes into the background, really. I call it sky holes. Where you're just using a lighter shade. Look, so if you use a little bit of this yellow and orange, you can just reshape your clouds and just have a bit of the sky shining through. So let's do it here, look. And it just looks like that part of the cloud is glowing in the sunlight. Let's have a little bit here. So as I say, look, if by going over it twice in the same paint, just thickening up the paint once it's dry, you can make it look a bit brighter and stand out more. So as I was saying, if your highlights dry a bit flat, look, just go over the top of them, just reapply the paint with the same colour, and I tend to not use a lot of water. I just dip my brush just right into the paint, and I just put it on the canvas. And because the paint is quite thick, look, it looks a lot brighter and we get these lovely highlights. So don't be afraid to dollop your brush into some paint and use less water. And you can, as I say, on a big scale, do the same as what you did on a little scale. So look, I'm just mixing and matching some colours to match my sky in areas, and all I'm going to do is poke some holes in my big clouds, just like I've done around the sun. So don't be afraid if you want to mix up some colours. Look, I've just cleaned my brush. Well, not really. It's still mucky. And I've just added some white, so some cerulean blue and cobalt blue into that mix. And I'm just trying to match up some of the colours, look, from the sky. And all I'm doing, look, I'm just poking these sky holes that I was mentioning before. I'm just changing the shape of my clouds to make them look more realistic. So if you want to, you can spend 5 minutes just doing that. Where you've got the lovely blended colours, now when you just poke in some of these sky holes and you just change some of the shapes, you can make them just look more refined and look more pretty. But you don't have to, it's just a little trick if you want to make things look more realistic. So our sky is looking really, really cool. I think this cloud, just nearest to the sun, I'm just going to get some cad yellow deep hue, look, just here on the edges, and I'm just going to soften this area here in the middle, and the same on the other side, because they would almost be getting bleached by the sun, because the sun is so powerful. So I'm just making that a little bit softer. But I think all in all, our clouds look really realistic, and I think that glow looks really, really pretty. So look at that, our top half of our sky is done, and we're going to do the easy part now. So the easy part is the ocean, and the top half was the hardest part. Please dry your work with a hairdryer, and then we're going to put some painting tape. I've just measured my horizon with some chalk, and I've made sure it's straight, and then I've got some painting tape. Now I'm just going to mix some orange and some of that warm grey to create a sort of warm brown. So some orange and warm grey. You can have a tad tint of crimson or red in it just to turn it a little bit more maroon. But again, we're just going to block in our painting. So we're just going to start blending it now and try to make it look much more pretty. So all I'm doing, I'm using this warm orange, orangey brown. I'm just coming down, and I'm going to leave a little section that we did earlier to create the shimmer. So I'm just going to go around it, and let's do the same on the bottom. So let's leave this little bit in the middle, and that's going to look like the sunlight shining down onto that wet sand and the ocean. So there we go. And then now we've got the orange, let's clean our brush And let's get some of that colour we made up for the clouds, which was crimson, ultramarine blue, and warm grey. So crimson, ultramarine blue, and warm grey. And then from the corners, look, we're going to come in towards the middle. So we want our left and our right to be really, really dark, a bit like our clouds. And that's going to frame, again, the composition. So our ocean sunset and our ocean beach should all match. So look, we're just coming towards the middle. I'm just going to leave a tiny gap between this cool blue and the warm sort of burgundy colour. So I'm coming in from the left, and look, I'm going to come in from the right now. So look, you can even paint the edges. Look, paint the edges. And then just turn your brush and then just come inwards. Look, really, really easy. Just drag the paint across. Easy technique. And the great thing about painting tape is if you put it nice and flush, look, you can go right up to the tape and we should get a perfectly straight horizon. So because there's a big jump, we're just going to mix the two colours together, just like previously with the sky. And we're just going to bridge the two areas together. You should get like a murky brown. And just gently, softly blend the areas together. And just under the wave, I'm just going to go under it, because that big wave's coming into shore is going to create a shadow as it rises up. So I'm just going to use that colour to create that. So there we go. Let's just do the top half and we should have a beautifully blended ocean. Yay! So that looks less scruffy, doesn't it? So let's refine it. So let's get some cerulean blue, some cobalt blue, some white. And we're just going to mix it a little bit into our warmer colour. And I'm going to use a flat brush. See, my brush is completely flat. And I'm just going to put some waves in. So all I'm doing, I'm using this cooler blue over the dark blue. And I'm using this really, oops, this was sand, wasn't it? I shouldn't be doing waves on sand. Forget that. So just here at the top. And all I'm doing, look, I'm just using that flat edge of the brush. And I'm just creating divots to look like the caps of waves. But I'm only doing it, look, on the blue section. So I'm using lighter blue on the darker blue. I'm just going to smooth it with my finger, just so it's not so harsh in the middle. And I've got a bit on the wet sand, so I'm just going to rub that out because I wasn't meant to do that. You don't really have waves on wet sand, do you? But I could use that colour. Why not? Just to have a little bit of a shimmer just here. And why not to have a little bit of a shimmer on the edge? So when you have wet sand, you do get like a really nice sharp shimmer. So let's have a little bit like that. There we go. And then let's clean the brush and let's just get some orange. I keep saying clean the brush, but you can clearly see I'm not. It's very dirty. I'm just going to get some orange and I'm just going to mix it into that blue. And in the middle, it should create sort of a beigey colour. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a warmer version in the middle. You can barely see this. I don't think I've got enough paint on my brush. So let's just thicken it up. I like to leave all these mistakes and bits in the tutorials. There we go. I've just put more paint on my brush because I'm trying to show people you don't do everything perfectly first time. You do make mistakes. And a lot of painting is just correcting your mistakes and just rejigging things about and learning. So there we go. And let's get Payne's Grey, which is a very dark bluey grey. And let's add a little bit of red to warm it up. So you could use black and add a little bit of red and a little bit of yellow if you want. If you haven't got Payne's Grey, and a little bit of blue. And what we're going to do, look, we're going to use our sharp edge of this brush. And we're going to put in this harshness. I'm going to add a little bit of orange just while it's going through the sun. So just here in the middle. Actually, let's do the whole outline the same colour. So we'll outline a nice dark shape. So all I'm doing, I'm just using that sharp edge of the brush. And this is when the wave comes right up and cascades down onto the beach. So this could be a big harsh wave. And then we're going to use that colour to outline the bottom bit where it's casting a shadow to make it look 3D. So look at that. So again, can you see how now we've got the blended underpainting and then we've got these subtle waves. Now we're putting the dark harsh wave colour on. This dark outline is bringing this wave forward. It's bringing it towards the shore. Can you see that? And we can even look, we can darken up our corners some more with this colour. And we could even add texture on the beach. So if you wanted to put in some footprints or some seaweed or a little starfish, anything like that. So I'm just going to darken up my corners. I think the sand should be a lot darker. What do you think? Because this area is going to be almost silhouetted, isn't it? Because it's so far from that sun. So imagine we were standing on the beach looking out. We're almost going to be in the dark. So let's just darken up the base of this painting. But it's totally up to you at home. What's really, really cool, lots of people send me their version of the tutorial. So don't forget to tag me at mstuartpaintings on Instagram and Facebook with your versions of these tutorials. And what's so fantastic is people put their own things into it. So they might put their dog, they might put someone fishing, or I don't know, a little sailboat or something like that. And they kind of make it their own. So don't be afraid to do that. As I say, if you're doing these tutorials at home, you can always add things to them and make them yours. So there we go. I'm just going to darken up this area here. And then when you're happy with your beach, as I say, I might come back to mine, but let's block in this wave here. So I'm just again using the sharp edge of this brush. I'm using some of that Payne's grey, a bit of red and a little bit of orange. So let's just have a wave sort of coming up. It's going to barrel up. Trying to keep it pretty straight. I want it thick in the sort of in the middle and the left, and I want it sort of fading out as it goes towards the right. Now the sun is coming through the middle. So if we put some sharp waves just here, and we can even look, we can even darken up, doing our X shapes, our edges, to get you to focus again towards the middle. So if I just darken up this area, and we can even do the same look just right at the top. So what I'm doing, I'm just gently blending, trying to frame this area. Oh, that's looking cool. So we should have this shimmer coming down from the middle, and we should have these harsh waves now starting to take effect. Because the sun, as I say, was coming down through the middle, let's get some red and mix it into our orange and grey. So red, orange and warm grey. And we should get that burgundy sort of colour, but a hint of orange. And let's put some heat going through the wave. So think of sunlight going through water. It's cascading through that wave. And we should get this sort of shimmer effect as it glows through the water. And again, it just makes it look more realistic. And while we've got that colour, use our little fine liner brush. I'm using a little rigger brush here. We can just highlight the top of this wave, because again, that's getting that sunlight. So it's all matching, and we can get some bright orange, and we can start making the shimmer just look a little bit more pretty. So again, just like the clouds, we're just refining it. We've got everything blocked in. Let's get some yellow, cad yellow deep hue, that golden yellow and orange. And let's just make a shimmer coming down. And you can even get, look, cad yellow and start creating sort of zigzags to have this glow of the sun hitting the water. So look, just using that glow of the sun. And then we can get some white and go down the middle. Try to stay in line with the sun. So look where the sun is. Doesn't matter if you're a little bit wonky, because obviously the water is moving. So I'm just going to make my sun a little bit more circular. So again, it really helps by having a really small thin brush. So if you have the right brush, I'm just going to get a thicker white. I'm just going to get a big dollop of white now. I'm just going to thicken this area up so my shimmer just looks a bit harsher. And then I'm just going to get a round-headed brush, some cobalt blue and cerulean blue, purple and white, and a little bit of our warm grey. There we go. And I'm going to start blocking in the actual sea foam. So this is all the water when it's crashing together coming into the beach. And the reason I'm going to paint it blue is I'm going to put the shadow on first, and then I'm going to put the highlights over the top. So if you imagine all this seawater is normally white, isn't it? But if we left it white, you can see it would look too cartoony. And it's got its back to the sun, so it's going to be a lot more darker and cooler. So by making it a warm, sort of a cool blue with this warm grey and purple, we can make it nice and dark. Now the middle is going to be the most in the light, and either side is going to be darker, so we can add some Payne's grey and just make the left hand side a little bit darker. We can even use that colour, look, at the bottom to create shadow. So look, all we're doing, oops, my brush is a bit dirty. All we're doing is to the left and to the right of the middle, just like we've done with the orange on the ocean. We're just going to make it a shade darker in colour. So again, it looks like the middle is getting all the sunlight. And we're just going to add a little bit more Payne's grey to our mix. A little bit of the warm grey. We're just making it even darker. So again, it gets you to focus towards the middle. So now we've got that laid down, we can get some orange and red. And we can, just like the wave, look, we can put some highlights over the top. So first we're going to put the sunlight. So this sunlight would be coming through the water, just like it's doing behind it. So again, just think of like a foundation. We've laid the shadow on first, so now we can put the highlights over the top. And then we're going to get some white and some of this orangey blue. We're just going to make a warm grey. So what I'm doing, I'm just adding white and blue to orange and red. I'm just creating this soft grey, look. And this is all the sort of crashing water as it comes into the beach. And I'm making sure, excuse me, to leave the dark blue underneath it to create a shadow. So I want it the light coming down from the top. See how I've done that? I've left the dark blue at the bottom. And then again, I'm just going to add more Payne's grey to my white as I move to the left and to the right. So even on the highlights, I want the warmest colours in the middle and more cool blues to the left and the right. And we'll see how it dries. If it dries too flat, we can always brighten it all up. It looks quite vibrant now, but as I said, with acrylics, especially whites, they absorb the colour below and they can dry really flat. So I'm just leaving gaps for the underpainting to look like shadows. But I think it's just going to be a bit too boring. And you can always put in if you paint over anything, you can always go back and with a fine liner and put back in some Payne's grey to create the outline. So in real time I was outlining my work because it looked quite vibrant and I was kind of happy with the highlights. But then as it dried, it's drying darker and darker. And I just don't think even though it looks realistic, I don't think they were standing out. And as I say, a few minutes later they look really dark. So look, this area here I'm just going to refine while it's drying. But can you see below the wave, look, the wash on the wave is already starting to, the whites are starting to blend in. And it just doesn't stand out as much as I want. So we'll go over it again. Just like this Payne's grey, look, by going over it again I can make it darker. So it's the same with shadows as it is with highlights. Look, you can go over areas and just make them more harsh or more bright. So don't be afraid. Obviously on YouTube, everything, it's like Instagram and all these things, everyone's perfect and everything is first time. But what you're not seeing is reality of things, which is basically sometimes you just have to do things once or twice. So I'm just using this fine liner and I'm gonna just go round the wet sand to create a nice divide between the sand and the wet sand. And again, it just brings it to life and makes it more 3D. So again, it's so much easier to do with a fine liner brush rather than try to do a really thin line with a big chunky brush. So take your time, try to have a steady hand. There we go. Oops, just run out of paint on that corner, so let's just make it neater. And then let's just get some orange and white to create sort of a peach colour. Some cad yellow deep hue. So orange, cad yellow deep hue and white, which will get a peach colour. And let's just make this a little bit brighter. So let's just make some highlights come down. So this is all the sunlight sort of beckoning down onto that wave. So again, now this area is dry, I'm just going to warm it up with some yellowy orange. And then I'm going to get some white, some titanium white. And I'm just going to start putting some really bright highlights over the top. As I say, they're going to look really, really bright now and almost cartoony, but they'll dry darker. So don't be afraid. So again, I'm leaving gaps for the shadow to give it more texture, to make it look like a crashing wave. So take your time, try to leave these gaps. So I've just got thick white paint, but I've obviously got this tiny brush. So it's really easy just to do really tiny little dots and splats to create that wash. And then I'm going to get some white and mix it into some cerulean blue and warm grey. So lots and lots of white, tiny bit of warm grey and a tiny bit of cerulean blue. And I'm just going to create a lighter highlight, but it's still got some blue and grey into it, to the left and to the right. So again, it's the same trick, but it's just more blue. So if you think we've got white and orange in the middle, getting all that sunlight. And we can even use that look at the bottom, because you do get some churn at the bottom, and because it's away from the sun at the bottom, it's still going to be a bit more blue and a little bit in shade. So you can use that white and blue just at the bottom of your waves. So again, as we go to the right and to the left, we want to fade it out. So let's go towards the left. And then you can add a tiny bit of more warm grey, just to make it a tad darker as you move to either side of the middle. And that should look more realistic. So all it is white, cerulean blue, as I say. You can add a tiny bit of orange just to the left and to the right. And then I'm just going to create some wash on this wave. So I'm just going to create some crashing foam just here. So this one could be a wave in the background that's sort of barreling down, just to make it look more interesting. I want to keep the middle quite orange because I want people to look at it. So just have another bit just rolling over here, sort of crashing. And then I think that wave is a bit wonky. I don't think I was doing it quite straight. So I've just mixed up some of the background colour, which was that orange sort of burgundy colour. And I'm just going to delete a little bit of the wave. Look, I'm just painting over it just to make it more straight. Just so to the eye, it just looks a bit more natural. Look at that. And as I say, if you've painted in the highlights and your shadows you've gone over, you can always just put them back. I'm going to get some black. I'm going to save my darkest darks to the corners. So I'm going to get some ivory black and I'm going to mix a little bit of red and crimson into it. So it's really, really harsh. So ivory black. And I'm just going to drag that from the corners. I want my corners to be really, really harsh, I think. I know it's going to make it a little bit more cartoony, but I think just to frame it, it's going to look a lot more moody. So let's just paint this black and red. Why not? I think it would just look a little bit better. So because it's got a little bit of red and crimson in it, it's not just jet black. It's harsh, but it's not too harsh. So let's just block in this beach. And then what I'm going to do is, because I've got that colour laid down, I'm going to use jet black on the corners, I think. Yeah. So let's get my flat brush and just come in from the corners with just pure jet black, just blending it in. And I'm going to do the same on the left corner because I want to sign it here. Look how real it's starting to look. Yay! And I'm going to get some black and my fine liner, and I'm just going to go around this wet sand. I'm going to just try and make it more circular and more smooth. So if you think of water as being very feminine and curvy, you don't want any harsh square angles. So think of liquid, you want it nice and rounded and soft. So by just getting a black fine liner and a black paint, look, I can just go round and just smooth up edges. Anything that looks really harsh, robotic and square and sharp, we don't want. So trying to keep it as smooth as you can. And just by having black just around the edge, it just defines it. And if we remove our painting tape, we should have a perfectly straight horizon. Look at that. And if you've got any chalk marks, you can just wipe them away, because I always use chalk to measure because it doesn't leave any horrible stains. And then I'm just going to use some Payne's Grey lastly, just to put in some harsher waves either side of the middle, just to make it look a bit more 3D. So again, use a flat brush. It's so much easier to get flat straight lines. You can get really sharp ones as they fade out to the distance. You can mix some orange and brown just to create the same wave in the middle. So orange, not brown, excuse me, orange and warm grey or Payne's Grey to create a brown. So orange and warm grey and Payne's Grey will create a sort of nice hot brown, kind of like a burnt sienna sort of colour. And again, look, you're just creating harsher waves in the middle. So by having the more brown colour, it just matches the sunlight above it. So again, it's just to make it more 3D. And then lastly, if you want to, you can use a bit of black and you can put some footprints or some texture in your beach. You don't have to, it's totally up to you. But if you want to, you can just use a flat brush and just put in some little terrain over that red and black, just so it stands out. So I've signed her in the bottom left hand corner and put her on a lovely easel to display her. So you've learnt how to do this glow in the middle and how to have shimmering light on your ocean water. So you've learnt how to create the glow and have darkening light going up through the background sky and how to frame that. How not to get a green sky by mixing colours, but also how to reflect the light onto the bottom, onto the ocean. How to paint sunset clouds in acrylic paints and create a diagonal shape and use highlights and shadows. How to paint waves and how to create shimmer on the ocean and again match the light. And paint this fantastic, realistic acrylic painting in just over an hour and 5 minutes. So thank you so much for painting along with me. My name is Murray. We have over 160 painting tutorials here on the channel for you to binge and learn. Don't forget to tag and like and subscribe, and take care. Happy painting. See you soon. Bye.